This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen-Net reporter, with the anchor for all seasons, Peter Katz, on White Plains Week. Jim Benneroff is on assignment, but Peter Katz has been hard at work reviewing the headlines of the week.
Indeed, and I'm right here.
Yes, you are.
And I'm not away on assignment.
No, you're not.
Not yet, anyway. Temperatures rise into the 50s as the wintry mix piles up. We may get another little blast of that this week. You know, part of the problem is you don't know whether to shovel or wait for it to melt. Or when they say it's going to be mixed with rain, you just don't know what to do.
No, you don't.
So you end up slipping and sliding.
Right.
And maybe being late for school.
Heavy rock salt.
Yeah. Democratic Party in White Plains officially announces their candidates for Common Council. They're all going to be women. And a fourth woman candidate will contest their selections in a primary scheduled for June 25th. Finger-pointing begins after Amazon's cancellation of plans to build a second headquarters in Long Island City, in Queens.
One of the garden spots of the world.
It's not me.
Not me.
They did it.
That's right.
White Plains' sluggish economy continues. Sales tax receipts are soft again this January. County sales taxes run 7% ahead of the pace set here in White Plains.
Right.
Why is the county doing so well and White Plains isn't?
It's a mystery. Nobody seems to want to find out.
How many years have we been asking that very same question?
Well, our questions
few
are
years.
never answered. Our questions are never answered. Really.
Westchester Biotech announces a partner for its North 60 property up in Valhalla.
In the woods. Yes.
In the woods,
yes.
yeah. Well, hey, they're going to get that project out of the woods pretty soon. Pace of increasing green energy sources being compromised by the not in my neighborhood bias. You've heard that one, haven't you?
That's right.
Not in my neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
That's NIMBY. Are you a NIMBY, John?
No, because nobody ever wants to put anything in my neighborhood anymore.
Yeah, that's happening over
I
in
lower the property values.
It's happening over in
Yes,
Greenberg.
yes,
We'll tell you about that one. Con Edison moratorium on new natural gas connections to new developments has caused alarm, but there's no clear way forward out of the situation because March 15th, when this supposedly goes into effect, is just around the corner. The U.S. is running way behind in reacting to reduce the carbon footprint. Now, the carbon footprint is how much carbon you use. What do we burn? Fossil fuels.
Yes.
What energy does it require that is carbon-based?
Oil.
Oil. Gas, maybe?
Gas, too, which is a derivative of oil.
Coal?
Coal.
Clean coal.
Yes, clean coal.
Yes. Don Newcomb, the Brooklyn Dodger right-hander, dies at age 92. Newcomb was the first black pitcher to win 20 games. He did that in 1951.
Yeah. A giant of the mound, one of the black aces, as described by the New York Times.
Unfortunately, John and I just don't remember 1951. It was way before our time.
Right, but Newcomb is remembered. He was dominating in the 50s. But
you know, we've we keep losing these household names.
Big nuke.
The world is not the same. You know, without there are familiar names that make you feel comfortable with what's going on in the world.
Yes, they give you a comforting feeling.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But now to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time, and that was this picture Thursday morning. It was
now that looks like New Hampshire or Vermont, right?
Ah, yes, right. I mean, isn't that Bernie Sanders walking his dog there? Yes. But be that as it may, this was a typical mix of what we've seen, you snowbirds down there. Don't come back yet. It's not over.
There may be some snowboarders in White Plains.
There could be. But we shot about 15 seconds of video of what happened to this after the temperature started to go up. And what you see is a lot of ice on the branches of trees caused by the changeover from snow to rain when it was still freezing. And you can see that it seems to be raining right off the trees, pounding down, and it really could have caused a dangerous situation if the ice had piled up. But this is what we're dealing with up here, but it's nothing like they're dealing with out in the Middle West,
the
which
weather
has gotten a fierce
extremely
dump.
fickle. Yes, there's a dump of over a foot working its way through that area as we speak, actually.
As we speak.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if it's heading this way or not, but they'll say it is anyway. Now, the news of the week was that the Democratic City Committee Chair, Tim James, announced his Democratic slate that was nominated by the nominating committee last week. And they are Nadine Hunt Robinson, the incumbent councilwoman, who will be going for her second full term, Victoria Presser, who's running for the first time, and Jennifer Puja, who is running for the first time. And they are joined in a possible primary challenge by Kat Bressler, who has a flyer already out, and she is a second grade teacher, is an activist, and apparently has already begun the campaign, and now we're in signature collecting mode in White Plains, New York, USA.
Well, you need signatures to get on the ballot.
Yes.
And my rule of thumb is when you're out there getting signatures on your petitions, get twice the number you need, because you know they're going to be challenged.
Particularly if you're primarying, as Ms. Bressler is, and she needs a very good election lawyer going in, because this is what the Democratic Party has done with every primary challenge.
All parties do it.
Yes, they do.
It's called keeping control. No, it's not. I'm sorry.
No,
it's not about. It's not about.
You mean we
control.
don't have free elections here?
It's about preserving the integrity of the election.
Preserving
system.
the integrity of the election.
That's right.
As we all know, there's no such thing as a non-integritous election.
That's a good word.
That-
Integritus. Look that up in the dictionary.
However, a little tip for those collecting signatures: they'd have to be registered Democratic voters. Just a little tip if you're picking up those signatures for the first time. Okay, now moving into another controversy, Peter. That is the Amazon aftermath.
Can't stand all these controversies,
I know.
John.
The Amazon aftermath. And a lot of questions are now being asked by Governor Cuomo in the lower right, along with Bill de Blasio, as to why Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Michael Gianaris, the other state senator behind the Stop Amazon efforts, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents the Queens area in Congress.
Who's from Yorktown Heights?
Yes, well, that's where she grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, you grew up in Great Neck, but we don't hold that against you.
Well,
right?
I haven't.
Exactly.
I haven't run for office to try to represent the people in Great Neck.
You have tried, though, yes. But
Anyway.
be that as it may,
Yes.
be that as it may, this is a big question. Have they erred on the side of popularity, of taking up the cudgel of the persons in Long Island City who are worried about the project? and
you
hurt New York seriously by doing so.
You really do have to wonder what happened here.
Yes.
Going into this, do you remember how enthusiastic everyone was about attracting Amazon? And I mean everyone.
What was there not to like?
There was competition. I mean, here in Westchester, under the Astorino administration, they put together quite a presentation.
They came in with a drone at the press conference.
That's correct,
Right.
if you remember that. Right in front of the county center, they had a drone carrying an Amazon box delivering Astorino's speech on the subject of attracting
it went
Amazon
off without
to
a
Westchester.
hitch.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have all these cities competing. New York City wins. Then, when no one is looking, there's this complete turnabout here.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah. So, were people as shocked as they professed to be when Amazon said, "No, enough of this. We're not going to put up with this. We'll come in there." But we're not going to fight for it. We want to be welcomed.
Yeah.
Now, as we see from local developments all the time, there's a certain amount of fighting that goes on, and developers do expect this. For example, if you propose to build a 100-story building, you can expect that the members of the XYZ Association are going
They'll
to
give you a 99, but
they'll want you to
100.
cut back to 70 or 60
But you could always add a
stories.
4 if you discount.
Was Amazon expecting this? Did they have buyer's remorse once they made a decision? And because if you looked at the way this unfolded, Amazon was very quick to say, "Okay, we're out of here."
I know, it was almost as if they had taken second thoughts, and I felt the person who was handling things for Amazon bungled it terribly. And on the other hand, the state senator who represents the Long Island section of Queens, Mr. Gianers, he refused to meet with Bezos when Bezos asked to meet with him 3 times. Now, you don't do that. You don't do that. You just go, you talk, you see what the actions are, and you come away with a way forward. That's what a statesperson does.
The question to be raised is, what's the real story here?
We never really know the real story.
What is the real dynamic that was at work here? We
Somebody
saw things as they unfolded.
Yeah.
We heard what politicians had to say. We saw the Amazon statement, a polite statement, but nonetheless it says we wash our hands of this. If you don't want us, that's okay. We can take our marbles and go home.
But it's a killer for New York City.
Well,
it's a killer.
All of a sudden, this was going to produce $21 billion, I believe was the figure, in benefits for the area.
Yeah.
Cuomo, in justifying the commitment to $3 billion of tax breaks and other incentives for Amazon, said, net you have to look at the bottom line, and if you spend $3 billion and get back $21 billion, that's not bad, folks.
And not bad at all. And I feel there was no reason not to keep talking in a cordial manner instead of just saying, well, we don't want to give money to billionaires and the richest company in the world. We don't want to give tax breaks to them. But they do it all the time.
They do it
national
all.
developers. National developers.
It's part of what happens if you look
it's a way of life.
Look at the tax breaks that any developer, let's say Donald Trump, has gotten.
But
on various projects.
He doesn't get tax breaks, but he doesn't pay taxes.
No, actually.
So if you don't pay taxes,
he does get tax breaks, and there are incentives all the time for many developments, and they're fully justified.
Mm-hmm. So. Takes a long time to get them back, though.
Anyway, so what happens with Amazon and its plan for second headquarters? Well, we do know that they're going ahead with what they plan to do near Washington, D.C. Chicago has reaced out and said, if they don't want you in New York, we'll be happy to take you.
We'll put you on the south side.
Yes.
Now, speaking of taxes, the sales tax figures came out from Albany, and this is not good stuff. The White Plains sales tax is down 2.5% in January. That's $737,000 in January after 7 months of the fiscal year.
Fiscal.
Oh, you're right. I can't pronounce that
No.
word. 29,337 versus 30,074,000 last year. And that is not good. Meanwhile, Westchester County is up 4.8% in January.
The thing is, John, when you're running a budget as tight
as White
Plains' budget is, that kind of loss can be devastating. Where can you go to make that up? What can you do? How high can you raise parking fees? How high can you raise water fees? How high can you raise
bust the city's tax
tickets?
down? Yeah.
How high can you raise the property tax? And keep in mind that with this federal salt business, every time you raise the property tax, you're really doubling that because
I hadn't thought of that, but he's absolutely right.
Because people no longer have that deductibility, so you're paying a tax on a tax.
Should be very lively budget hearings coming up
For
shortly.
example, we're going to hear a lot about the school system. They had their settlement with the teachers, right?
Right.
They're working on the budget proposal. John has put on his green eye shade and rolled up his sleeves and come up with some projections which are not healthy. But let's say the school tax, for example, goes up $400 or $500 for a typical homeowner. Well, that really is the same as going up $1,000.
Yeah.
Net, because the homeowner now has to pay tax on that increase. You have to pay the federal tax on what you're paying in your local and state taxes.
The state and local tax law is devastating to New York, California, and the big money states.
And this now it's a new factor that the local officials really do need to keep in mind. Every little inch that they're raising the local tax, be it city, be it county, be it school,
they have to be
it's
mindful.
really a double whammy on the taxpayer.
They have to be mindful.
Yeah, mindful.
As Tim Connors
Where have I
would
heard
say.
that before? Mindful.
Tim Connors, one of his favorite words, but he was mindful.
So
Now,
anyway, so what we ask again, what's happening on the sales tax thing? Why is it that sales tax collections for Westchester County are going up and White Plains is not so healthy?
well,
You can take a look at White Plains and see on Mamaroneck Avenue, you see the empty Walmart store downtown.
But we're
That
still
may be
doing
one
pretty
reason.
well. I did a slide seeing how we do against the other cities.
Okay,
Could we
let's
have
take a
that?
look.
Look at that. Around the city in the sales tax league after 7 months, Yonkers is the leader among the cities of 32 million in the first 7 months of the year, with a population of 200,000. White Plains is second with 30.1 million with a pop of 57,000, which is very impressive. People are still coming to White Plains to shop to an extent. New Rochelle, really, with 77,000, much more in White Plains. They're half of what White Plains is getting. And Mount Vernon, forget about it.
Well,
They're in
Mount
serious
Vernon,
trouble.
they really, in Mount Vernon,
Yeah.
you don't find too many destinations for shopping. Perhaps the Sanford Boulevard area offers some of that.
Yeah.
But you're not going to go shopping in downtown Mount Vernon, I don't think.
Now, turning to something intriguing, and that is the announcement by Westchester Biotech about that they are acquiring its first partner last week, going on this proposed site, and it's a very big outfit down in the south of France, a very big research outfit, and they will be coming on one of our People to Be Heards in March to discuss the situation. But this is a piece of good effort, and we have to find out whether or not they are, since they're approved, that they should be cleared for a gas connection. But that'll be interesting. It's going to be down the road.
I don't know where that stands. Now, the plans really for building it, the actual building plans have not been approved because that requires local approval.
Yeah.
They have a lease with the county. The land
is a
lease
question.
has moved forward. So At what point can Con Ed say, sorry, you can't hook up here because your project isn't along far enough?
Well, at what point? This is going to be an interesting how it plays out enforcing this moratorium. And speaking of the moratorium, the pace of increasing energy sources is, we got wind of a meeting that was held in Greenberg on building a solar installation over in the Taxter Ridge area to the west of Interstate 87, which is above a very well-developed and reasonably expensive community. They had the meeting back in December, and it goes on this site. You have the satellite shot. There it is. There's the site of the solar farm right there, superimposed on a Google satellite shot. This is just absolutely incredible. It really gives you a feel for it. And yesterday, Paul Feiner said that it looks as if the company is not going to proceed with the application because the neighborhood was against it. What a surprise.
Okay.
You know, they always are. But this is
not always, but sometimes.
Well, that would be something to research. But be that as it may, which I've been saying too much tonight, this is very symptomatic of what happens. We want to build new green energy sources, and we need them fast, but we're not going to get them very fast. And this was a point made by Mr. Ritzik, lower right, in this plea to the hearings last week, in which he said the business and development community stand ready to step forward and work with Con Edison, the state government, the Public Service Commission, and other involved parties to tackle the issue head on. The moratorium is a wake-up call that can't be ignored. We're confident that working together we can and will find viable solutions. And one of those solutions was for the business community to take the lead and identify businesses that could go with the Con Ed suggestions for, saving electricity made from gas. However, next slide, please. We're running out of time. Look at what's happened. We were going to build wind turbines off Montauk, and 2 ventures are ready to go if the federal government approves it. Building one off 85 miles off Montauk, another 30 miles off Montauk.
I think if they were combined with oil drilling rigs, the federal government would approve it very quickly these days.
But that isn't really funny, because it's probably true.
Well, actually, Governor Cuomo has been among those trying to stop the leasing of federal lands offshore, the offshore for offshore drilling, which the federal government wants to do off the Northeast.
Now, if we can have that slide back for a second, let's go over where Con Ed stands on this. Con Ed told me last week they will not help to identify homes, businesses for gas-saving installations that they suggest, natural gas savings installations. Biz organizations will have to do it. Only private contractors will install. There will be no reimbursement.
This has to do with the installation of heat pumps to replace gas instead of using a gas-fired boiler.
Now, there are no figures so far on how much megawatts of gas-generated electricity has to be saved and taken away from natural gas supplies.
Well, you know what people are not talking about, John, is the elephant in the room, and that's Indian Point, which is due to be closed now. It's 3 years out if you follow the proposed timetable, and no one really is talking about what are we going to do. Are we going to put up a gas-fired power plant there? How are we going to replace the electricity that's being generated?
Gas line. Which means just a gas line or huge tanks of gas.
I found out this week something interesting, that quietly time marches on, and Entergy, which owns Indian Point, is proceeding with its plan to sell Indian Point to another entity, which will then handle the decommissioning of that facility.
Yes, and
This is a process that they are following with other nuclear power plants to decommission them. When you take them offline, you shut them down. You do something for the storage of the spent nuclear fuel at the site. But the process involves Entergy actually selling off the plant to a different company.
we're out of here.
Something like
And
that.
but County Executive Latimer put out a statement yesterday saying that he wants to be assured this is not going to impact jobs for the people in that area that are employed by Indian Point. Now that is, what are we going to do? Subsidize them?
Subsidize, I don't
Or
know.
something? I don't know, but it's interesting. You could say that, but how are you going to make the big difference there? Now, the whole point here is the U.S. is running tragically behind. This is a graph that appeared in the New York Times yesterday, which shows you the top line goes across the present pace of U.S. use of fossil fuels
yes.
going out to the Accord deadline, which was 2025, I believe. And that's where they would have been had they followed all the directives that they could have done. So they are really virtually at a standstill.
Well, this is the Trump administration basically changing policy midstream to stop the trend away from carbon.
Well, this is not good because we're really running out of time. And in fact, even this morning when they were discussing the new Green Deal plan, which...
This is a Democratic thing which may become a big campaign issue.
Yes, maybe. Well, it definitely will because it's going
campaign is just getting started.
Just getting
so we'll
started, and we welcome back Bernie Sanders bringing his
Bernie Sanders
money
has
to the
declared
table.
his candidacy. He set some sort of record in raising $15 million in the first day.
Oddly enough, just like Jill
announcing.
Stein did. Do we see something happening here?
Well, Bernie Sanders says that this all came from over about a quarter million donors, individual donors. $27 a piece is the donation.
That's a lot. 27 goes into 6 million.
Remember that from the last Bernie Sanders campaign?
Yes. Well, it's interesting, but this is not a good thing.
We lost one of those big names again this week.
All right.
Don Newcomb.
Yes. And there he is.
Remember as a kid admiring Don Newcomb? You remember collecting Don Newcomb baseball cards?
He was big. He was a big-time pitcher.
How many of these big names that you grew up with have now gone?
Yes.
He was 92 years old.
Yes, he was. He won 140 games in the major leagues, lost 90. He had 136 complete games and 294 starts. That's going the full 9. He was a great player. A great player. And this has been a great show. Thanks, Peter. And John Bailey, Peter Katz, for Jim Beneroff. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.